Long before there were universities like Oxford or Harvard, India was already the Vishwaguru, the global teacher. Ours was the land where education wasn't about degrees, but about wisdom, where learning was holistic, value-based, and meant to shape human beings, not just professionals. Welcome to Tipsy Talks. Today on Tipsy Talks, we trace that arc, the pinnacle, the breakdown, and the very latest attempt to reclaim the glory of Indian learning, the National Education Policy 2020. I'm your host, and today's conversation takes us deep into the evolution of India's education system, from ancient knowledge traditions to modern reforms. My guest today is someone who bridges both worlds, a soldier and a scholar, Brigadier Rajwant Singh Grewal, Vishisht Seva Medal, retired. Brigadier Grewal believes NEP 2020 is ambitious, but asks a very blunt question. Can we fix what we failed to fix before? Over the next 30 minutes, we travel from the ancient Gurukuls to colonial classrooms, from policy blueprints to the gritty realities of implementation. Expect history, hard truths, and practical ideas for rebuilding learning in India. Hello friends, welcome to Tipsy Talks. I'm Tipsy Vadava, your host, and joining me today to explore National Education Policy 2020 and the imperatives for its success is a rare guest who lives at the crossroads of practice and scholarship. A soldier, an academic, and a university leader, Brigadier Rajwant Singh Grewal, Vishisht Seva Medal, retired. Brigadier Grewal, ladies and gentlemen, was commissioned into the Corps of Engineers in 1967 and served the nation for more than 34 years. He earned a PhD while in service and in 1995 became the first serving officer in the three services to be recognized by the University of Madras as a PhD guide. After retirement, the Brigadier has served as the Vice Chancellor of a university and authored several books, including Envisioning Indian Higher Education and Resurgent India, A Soldier Speaks. Brigadier Grewal, sir, welcome to Tipsy Talks.
Thank you, Tipsy. Thank you for getting me into this program.
Sir, in ancient India, where learning wasn't institutional but civilizational, what was the fundamental ethos of education back then, sir?
Tipsy, in ancient India, that is approximately about 2500 BC, India had a system of Gurukuls. In fact, I would say that it has become a trend to talk about Gurukuls, but without having an understanding about their salient features. These Gurukuls provided holistic education, and apart from knowledge, they fostered discipline, character, and a sense of connect with the community. Now, the Gurukul system had two major features. The first one was that the teachers, the gurus, they devoted their life to teaching. They taught not for any material benefits, but for the love of teaching. Their objective was to ensure that their pupils became productive members of the society and were knowledgeable. The guru selected his pupil very carefully, and the student then almost became a member of the family of the guru. You see, he moved to the Gurukul and stayed there till the time he completed his studies. And the second major, and I would say important feature, was the pedagogy. It involved holistic learning, which comprised guided self-learning, exploration, experiential and collaborative learning, that is, learning through discussions and interpretation. Emphasis was laid on developing the analytical and critical thinking skills of the student. Interestingly, this pedagogy is the envy of the modern universities in the developed world today.
Right, so that's very interesting, sir. But what is the system for higher education back then, sir?
As far as higher education is concerned, that was provided through agraharas and parishads. The agraharas were set up by teachers having specialized knowledge. A major feature of these agraharas was that meritocracy prevailed. Only those who were considered fit to receive higher education were admitted. There were instances where princes from the royal families were denied admission due to lack of aptitude or competence, but commoners who were found fit were admitted. The Parishans were basically organized by kings, the rulers of that era, where learned rishis came from all over and engaged in discussions with their peers. The students benefited by listening to them. Unfortunately, somewhere around about 700 BC, some aberrations set in into the system where emphasis shifted to rituals involving recitation of mantras without even understanding their meanings. Education became the sole preserve of higher caste, that is, the Brahmins. The Kshatriyas and Vaishyas were provided basic knowledge, mainly to pursue their vocations. Shudras were totally debarred from receiving any education. Worst, even women were not allowed to receive education.
Right.
This discrimination against women had adverse effect on society in later years. Therefore, I will say that these drawbacks resulted in the system of Gurukuls getting devalued. The emphasis shifted from knowledge acquisition to memorization, that is, rote learning. Please remember that when we talk of our schools and universities changing the paradigm from rote learning to knowledge acquisition, we are trying to bridge a gap of more than 2 millennia. This should give you an idea about the enormity of the challenge that we face now.
Right, sir. Sir, India once had very famous global universities. To name a few, Takshashila, Nalanda, Vallabhi. What made them so advanced in those times and what led to their downfall later?
Tipsy, these universities emerged in two different time periods.
Right.
The Takshila University, which was in northwest India, now in Pakistan, came about somewhere around 5th century BC. The learning was based on Vedic scriptures. In fact, I will say that this has been the only university in India established by Vedic scholars. Later, when the Buddhist system of education came into being, teaching based on Buddhist scriptures was also adopted here. Takshila was a major city where a large number of gurus established their own learning centers. Each guru was an institution by himself and specialized in a particular domain, a domain of knowledge, I will say. Chandragupta Maurya, the renowned Indian emperor, was brought to Takshila by Chanakya and received his education here for over 8 years. Takshila became a cradle of great scholarship, producing landmark works such as Kautilya's Arthashastra, Panini's seminal Astadhyayi, dealing with grammar, and Charaka's path-breaking treatise on medicine. These were among many others. The list is too long to quote here. An important aspect is that Takshila spawned a culture known as Greco-Buddhism that spread far and wide to Afghanistan, Central Asia, and even Korea.
Right.
Takshila went into oblivion around 4th century CE because the rulers of that era, the Huns, withdrew their patronage to the university. Now, as far as the second phase that I said, I would say the era began around 5th century CE. Many viharas established by the Buddhists acquired the stature of universities. These universities were Nalanda, Vikramshila, Udantapuri, Jagdala, and many more. They were, I think, about 12 or 13 in number. Right. Almost all these universities were in eastern India, except for one, that is Vallabhi University in Gujarat. These were Buddhist universities, but were inclusive in nature. They ensured that the students carried out a comparative study of Buddhist and Vedic school of thought, and thus the Buddhist and Vedic scriptures formed part of the curriculum. Many foreign scholars like Hyun Sang, Yijing, Fayan, from countries like Tibet, China, and Korea, just to name a few, came here to study. They carried back with them many scholarly works by Indian authors. The knowledge created by these universities traveled far beyond Indian borders and influenced the cultures of many universities. Thus, these universities became the source of India's soft power. Consequently, Southeast Asia, Tibet, China, and even Japan came under the influence of Indian culture. An interesting feature of these universities was that though the rulers of that era supported them materially, but they did not interfere in their internal functioning.
Right.
Our present day politicians need to learn something from this. These universities were destroyed by the invaders in the last decade of 12th century. In fact, the last university was destroyed in 1197.
Right.
The monks were killed, and some fled to countries like Tibet and started teaching there. Interestingly, a point that is not much talked about is that no university was established south of Vindhyas. There were many dynasties like Cholas, Pandyas, Cheras, Chalukyas, Satyavahanas, and the four dynasties of Vijayanagar Empire. They promoted Indian culture, but none of those established a university. After the downfall of our universities, a number of centers of learning emerged, like I'll name those Kanchipuram, Thiruvatiyur, their present day Chennai in the south,
Right.
and Varanasi or Kashi in the present day university, present day UP. There were many more. I can't name all of them here.
Right. Now, let's come down to the colonial period now, sir. Sir, everyone's heard of Lord Macaulay and Lord Macaulay's minute on education, but very few of us actually understand its long shadow, sir. Could you explain as to why it was so defining for Indian education system?
Very interesting point. When the British arrived in India, the proportion of literate Indian population, when I say literate, that is the percentage of population which could read, write, and also maintain simple accounts,
Right.
was much higher than that that was existing in Europe at that particular stage.
Right.
When the British gained foothold in India, they wanted to mold the education system to serve their colonial interests. And that is where the much maligned Macaulay's Minute comes in. There was another document which people don't talk about, and that is the Charles Woods Dispatch.
Right.
You see, somewhere around 1830s, there was a debate on the system of education that should be followed in India. In fact, it took the shape of a controversy known as the Anglicists versus the Orientalists controversy.
Right.
Those who were supporting Macaulay wanted an Anglicist system to be followed in India. They wanted Indian education system to be similar to what was being followed in England. Whereas the Orientalists, they wanted the education system to continue the way it was in India. Charles Woods' dispatch recommended the Orientalist system to continue, whereas Macaulay wanted the Anglic system to be adopted. Interestingly, many Indian social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, though he was not present in 1835 when this policy was implemented, he passed away earlier. He supported the Anglicist system. Unfortunately, the Anglicists carried the day, and consequently, in 1835, an alien system based on the system of education in England was imposed on the Indian environment without taking into consideration the local factors.
Right.
This had a catastrophic impact on Indian education. Therefore, the people who hold Macaulay totally responsible for the downfall of Indian education system are selectively quoting, I would dare to say, sometimes even misquoting from history.
Right.
The effect of adopting Anglicist system was that by 1882, the British were forced to start thinking of launching an adult education program in India.
Right.
It is tragic that within about 2 generations since 1835, the majorly literate Indian population was rendered illiterate. Somehow, the adult education program launched by the British did not succeed. Simultaneously, in 1882, the government also started a vocational stream at the school level. Unfortunately, Indians did not opt for the vocational stream. And in 1902, a survey was carried out, and it was found that only about 8% of the students who joined schools opted for the vocational stream. Remainder students opted for the general stream, hoping to get clerical jobs with the government.
Right, sir. Sir, that was about the school education. Could you tell us a little bit more about higher education during the colonial period, sir?
Yes, yeah. you know, in 1857, the British established three universities, one each at Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. Some more were added later. When India achieved independence, we had 17 universities. Very minimal teaching took place in these universities. Most of these universities had colleges affiliated to them, and they basically performed the functions of holding examinations, declaring results, and providing degrees. The quality of education being provided was not up to the mark.
Right.
So in 1938, the government felt that the quality of education in Indian universities should be improved. They set up a commission that was known as the Resurgent Commission. And this commission gave its report in 1944. The recommendations involved changing the mindset of the population, the parents, the students, and capacity building of the teachers, and enlightening and training academic leaders.
Right.
They also wanted changes in the policy to increase the expenditure on education. An important observation of this commission was that it will take at least 40 years to implement their recommendations. However, the Indian leaders were not ready to wait till 1984. They wanted quick fix results, and consequently, India is still struggling to improve the quality of education. We are almost 1 century behind time.
Absolutely.
And another aspect, in 1944, India had 17 universities and about 500 colleges. The challenge was manageable at that stage. Today, we have more than 1,000 universities, 55,000 colleges. It is a mammoth task now to bring about changes to improve the quality of education.
All right. So it's quite interesting to understand how things changed in the education field till the independence. But after the independence, we had the reins in our own hands. We were no longer at the mercy of the colonial empire. So did we make any change thereafter? Did we try and reclaim that long last glory post-independence, sir?
That is a very pertinent question. Post-independence, the government set up Radha Krishnan Committee, and it gave its recommendations in 1948.
Right.
The recommendations were that the system of education should try to produce good citizens with moral and ethical values. The emphasis should be on learning-centric approach, and the schooling should be for 12 years, followed by a 3 years bachelor's degree program.
Right.
Another recommendation of the committee was that we should lay more emphasis on vocational and professional education. It also said that religion should be part of the curriculum at the school and college levels. Unfortunately, the country was busy coping with post-partition challenges, and not much was achieved. Later, the government set up Kothari Commission. That was in 1966. It gave its report in 1968, which is now known as the National Education Policy 1968.
Right.
It recommended certain structural changes. That means that the education should be based on 10+2 system, 3-language formula, and emphasis should be on STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and maths. And it also recommended that we should try to improve the teachers' training. And most importantly, the magic figure, 6% of the GDP should be spent on education.
Right.
Unfortunately, though the structural changes were by and large adopted, but not much could be done as far as improving the quality of education was concerned. Thereafter, in 1986, the government came up with national policy on education, which said that we should try to improve equity and accessibility. And it also laid emphasis on child-centered education and vocational education.
Right.
Coincidentally, the demographic profile of the country was such that there was an exponential expansion in the education system, both at the school and at university levels. Accessibility of the system improved due to this expansion because the number of schools, colleges, and universities increased. The concept of distance education also came in. That also helped in accessibility.
Right.
And an interesting feature was that during this period, the private sector entered the school and higher education uh, at the school and higher education levels,
Right.
and that too in a big way, and improved the accessibility, though the cost of education went up. But the principle of equity could not be implemented well because the system of reservations adopted by politicians was with an eye on electoral vote banks. There wasn't much improvement in the quality of education, and similarly, vocational education also did not take off despite a number of ITIs having been established.
Right, sir.
Sadly, accountability in the education system remained an elusive dream. But I will say that structural changes were adopted by and large. So, my view is that the major failure of the two policies was that the quality of education could not be improved.
Right,
The
sir.
basic reason was faulty teachers' training, and merit was sacrificed. Vocational education also did not see much improvement, basically because the parents were not very keen to train their children for blue collar jobs.
Right.
Privatization in the universities remained confined mainly to professional programs. Uh, Sadly, the quality of research in the universities remained poor. The universities failed to inculcate a research culture in their campuses. That remains the problem even today.
Right, sir. So let's now move on to the latest policy that we have, National Education Policy, NEP 2020, sir. This policy, sir, is being hailed as a game changer, a return to roots. Uh, will it really, in your opinion, enable India to reclaim its Vishwaguru status?
Yes, I will say that it is an ambitious policy which represents the aspirations of present day India.
Right.
Whether it succeeds or not depends on what course the country adopts.
Right, sir.
The policy has recommended a shift from 10 plus 2 system at the school level to a 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 model, where out of the first 5 years, the first 3 years are for preschool education, and remainder of the system by and large remains the same.
Right, sir.
It advocates holistic development of students with teacher at the heart of the learning process. The stress is on conceptual understanding instead of passing examination.
Right.
The policy also says that we should go in for liberal education and multidisciplinary approach. And there should be synergy in curriculum that includes life skills, ethics,
Right.
human
Right.
values, and even constitutional values. And an important recommendation is that there should be light but tight regulation with a single window concept. There should be one overarching regulator with four verticals dealing with regulations, research, grants, accreditation, and such other functions. It also has said that universities should be graded into three types. At the bottom level should be the universities which address the social imperatives of the country, that is, to provide holistic education to masses and impart relevant skills. The second tier should address the economic imperatives by producing industry ready manpower and to carry out limited research. And at the top of the pyramid should be the research oriented universities. The policy recommends that the system of affiliated colleges should give way to autonomous colleges by 2030. Now, that is a tall order.
Right.
You must consider the levels of academic integrity in the existing system. It has also said that education is a public service and there should be a substantial investment going up to about 6% of the GDP.
Right. Sir, we also understand that NEP 2020 provides a real good roadmap to get there, sir, to reclaim our past glory. But I think the key lies in the implementation of the policy. What, in your opinion, are the inescapable imperatives for its success?
Tipsy, you touched a very important point.
Sir.
My first observation is that NEP 2020 has been framed, but no study has been taken up at the national level to ascertain as to why despite adopting two earlier national education policies, we were not able to improve the quality of education in the country.
Right.
And until and unless we know what mistakes we made, we are likely to repeat those. Now, the most important imperative today is that we have to change the mindset of the countrymen. Parents and the students should concentrate more on learning instead of acquiring degrees and demanding job placements. You see, it is a question of demand and supply. The universities and colleges are working to meet the demands of parents and students. Moment the emphasis shifts to learning instead of acquiring degrees, the universities will also change tack and their pedagogy. Secondly, Indians should demand accountability. You see, and it is a very sad point. Education is a fundamental state responsibility, and it is disheartening that during various election campaigns, there is an election almost every year, there is no mention of improving the quality of education. Countrymen don't demand it, and politicians ignore it. And we also need to launch a social campaign to highlight the importance of vocational education and supplement it by a pragmatic apprenticeship scheme. Another aspect is that we must accept that privatization of education is here to stay. Though reasonable profit should be permitted, profiteering should be ruthlessly curbed. Next, teachers are the critical change agents to improve the quality of education. We need a well-structured campaign for their capacity building. An important imperative is, and that involves industry, that there should be a meaningful industry-academia collaboration. The industry should be able to facilitate in specifying the learning outcome for students for different domains. Right. So far, the industry has not been able to do that. I would say that since the industry is unable to articulate what it wants, the universities are groping in the dark. Most important, research is the weakest point of our universities. Application-oriented research in universities should take precedence over publication of papers. Right. We should develop rubrics to assess value addition to the knowledge and skills of a student at the time of graduating from colleges and universities. Most important, we should assess the contribution made by the universities towards the economic and social development at the local, regional, and national levels. Actually, that is the main basic role of the universities. Keeping that in mind, India should develop its own methodology to assess the rankings of the universities. At present, the system is geared towards chasing rankings, and those rankings that are developed by foreign agencies. Right. Those have marginal relevance to India. Very sore point, the system of autonomous colleges that demands academic integrity. The country needs to work on its value system. NEP talks about restructuring of the regulatory body, but nothing has happened on ground in the last 5 years. That should be done as soon as possible. A point that is never discussed is that there should be a cap on the size of the universities. Right. There are universities that recruit students by thousands in different programs, thereby sacrificing quality. The regulatory bodies are aware of that, but choose to turn a blind eye. Right. The reason, Tipsy, your guess is as good as mine. I would not like to say more on that. Similarly, there should be a cap on the number of colleges affiliated with a particular university. At present, the numbers are unmanageable. There is a university with about 600 colleges affiliated to it. Right. The average number in most Indian universities is about 200 colleges, and that is unmanageable. The politicization of the campuses must be stopped immediately. Will our political leaders permit that? And that is $1 million question. And most importantly, the expenditure on education should be at least 6% of the national GDP. 6% of the GDP is that magical figure that keeps coming, but we keep talking about it, but we don't do anything about it.
All right, sir. Right, sir. So that was very, very interesting and enlightening, sir. Now we come to a very interesting phase of our episode, which is called Tipsy's 10. It's a rapid fire round of 5 questions only for you, sir. I'm going to be shooting these questions at you quickly, sir, and I expect a very brief, possibly a one-liner response for you. Are we ready for that, sir?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So the first one coming your way, one aspect of Gurukul system we should bring back today.
Holistic education and meritocracy.
Fine, sir. So one colonial legacy we must discard quickly.
Borrowing practices from abroad and imposing those on the system without due consideration.
Right, sir. So your biggest hope from NEP 2020?
Improving the quality of education in Indian institutions. And once the quality improves, everything will fall in place.
Right, sir. One change, sir, which is very urgently needed in teacher training.
A well-structured program for their capacity building.
Right, sir. And the last one, sir. One word for the future of Indian education system.
Uncertain. It depends on the national will, the public, the government, as well as the politicians.
All right, sir. Excellent, sir. It's been a fantastic journey today, sir, from Gurukuls to the present era. Thank you very much for guiding us through thousands of years of evolution with such clarity, honesty, and hope, sir. Your insights remind us that India has always had the wisdom. What we need now is the will to implement it. Thank you so very much for sparing your time to be on the show, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tipsy. Thank you for getting me onto this program.
There are 3 key takeaways from our episode on NEP 2020 today. Number 1, India's educational heritage was holistic, value-driven, and meritocratic, far ahead of its time. Our ancient systems focused on producing wise, capable citizens, not just degree holders. Learning was experiential, inclusive in its early form, and rooted in character and community building. Number 2, colonial interventions replaced learning with rote and purpose with clerical training. The Anglicist shift uprooted India's indigenous knowledge tradition. Within 2 generations, a largely literate civilization became dependent on an alien, exam-centric model, a legacy still reflected in today's education culture. And last but not the least, NEP 2020 is a visionary framework, but its success depends entirely on implementation. Mindset change, teacher capacity, depoliticization, industry collaboration, and adequate funding are essential. The policy offers direction, but real transformation needs societal will and collective responsibility. What a journey! From the Gurukuls that shaped civilizations to the invasions that shattered our centers of learning. From the colonial classrooms that valued clerks over thinkers to an independent India that kept expanding access but struggled with quality. And finally, to the promise and possibility of NEP 2020. If today's conversation tells us anything, it's this. Education isn't just a policy. It's the soul of a nation. A nation becomes what it teaches and who it empowers to teach. To everyone watching, remember, understanding where we came from is the first step to shaping where we are going. Whether you are a parent, student, teacher, policymaker, or just a curious learner, your voice matters. So demand quality, demand accountability, demand learning that transforms lives. I'm Tipsy Vadawa, and this was Tipsy Talks. See you in the next episode for another resonating conversation on another interesting topic. Till then, stay curious, stay questioning, and stay thoda sa tipsy. On learning, of course. Jai Hind.